She collapsed in the rose garden the morning the
Please help
triplets
me.
first smiled, and no one noticed until she stopped breathing. Elena Marlowe's body hit the marble path with a dull thud, her crisp white uniform splattered with blood from the nosebleed she could no longer hide. The roses swayed above her, indifferent. Inside the mansion, 7-year-old Diana giggled for the first time in a year, but Elena didn't hear it. She was counting her remaining days, 28, maybe 30. Her eyes fluttered open to a cloudless sky. She pressed her palm against the warm stone and pushed herself upright, wiping the blood from her upper lip with trembling fingers. 3 days. She'd only been at the Graham estate for 3 days, and already her body was betraying her. She stumbled through the French doors and found them there, Diana, Abigail, and Adriel, propped in wheelchairs near the open windows, sunlight washing over their pale faces. 3 little girls who should have been running through fields, climbing trees, scraping their knees. Instead, they sat motionless, connected to monitors that beeped out the fragile rhythm of their hearts. "Miss Elena," Abigail's voice was barely a whisper, "you have red on your face." Elena forced a smile and dabbed at her nose. "Silly me, I tripped in the garden, nothing to worry about." But there was everything to worry about. She wasn't a trained nurse. She wasn't even a certified caregiver anymore, not since the hospice center fired her for emotional over-involvement with dying patients. Her resume was fabricated, her references falsified, and Leonard Graham had been too shattered by grief to check any of it. She reached into her pocket and felt the worn locket there. Inside was a photograph of a little girl named Maya, her daughter, dead at 7 from the same rare leukemia variant that was slowly killing these triplets. Elena had made a promise at Maya's grave. She would spend her final weeks giving these girls what Maya never had, a chance to feel truly loved before the pain consumed them. That night, Elena crept into the darkened nursery. The monitors cast an eerie green glow across the room. Adriel, the smallest of the 3, was awake, her eyes tracking Elena's movement. "Can't sleep?" Elena whispered. Adriel shook her head. Elena pulled a chair close to the bed and began humming. It was a lullaby, soft, haunting, the same melody she'd sung to Maya during those final terrible nights. The notes seemed to fill the room with something warm, something sacred. "What's that song?" Adriel asked. "Something my daughter loved." "Where is she?" Elena's throat tightened. "She's somewhere beautiful now, somewhere without pain." The door slammed open. Leonard Graham stood in the doorway, his tall frame casting a shadow across the room. His jaw was clenched, his eyes red-rimmed and furious. "Get away from her!" "Mr. Graham, I was just—" "You were just what? Sneaking around in the middle of the night, singing songs to children you barely know?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You hired me to change linens and prepare meals, not to play mother." "I understand your concern." "You don't understand anything." His hands were shaking. "You don't even know their names. You're just another person who will leave when it gets too hard, when the machines start screaming and their bodies start failing, and—" "She knows mine," the whisper came from the bed. Adriel was looking at Elena with something that might have been recognition. "What?" Leonard froze. "She said my name right, not like the other nurses." Leonard stared at his daughter, then back at Elena. The fury in his eyes flickered, replaced with something more complicated. Without another word, he turned and left. Elena exhaled slowly. She reached into her pocket and opened the locket, needing to see Maya's face. But as she did, something slipped out, a folded hospital bracelet. She caught it before it hit the ground. Her blood went cold. The bracelet was stamped, "Maya Marlowe, leukemia, deceased." But beneath it was a second bracelet, newer, the ink still sharp. Adriel Graham, leukemia, active. Elena's hands trembled as she stared at the 2 bracelets. Why did she have Adriel's medical ID? The answer was buried so deep, she'd almost convinced herself she'd forgotten it. Almost. The days that followed were a careful dance. Elena moved through the mansion like a ghost, transforming the sterile hospital wing into something that resembled life. She hung fairy lights around the windows. She brought in a record player and filled the room with music. Old songs, silly songs, songs that made the girls laugh. "What are you doing?" Leonard demanded one morning, finding Elena on a ladder painting clouds on the ceiling. "Giving them something to look at besides white walls. They're sick, they need rest, not decoration." Elena climbed down and faced him. "Mr. Graham, with all due respect, your daughters have spent the last year staring at that ceiling. They know every crack, every stain, every imperfection. They've memorized it because there's nothing else to do while they wait to die." She let the words land. "I'm not decorating. I'm giving them permission to hope." Leonard's jaw tightened, but he didn't stop her. By the end of the second week, the changes were undeniable. Diana was walking short distances with a walker. Abigail was requesting her favorite foods, macaroni and cheese, strawberry ice cream, anything with sprinkles. Adriel was asking questions about the stars, about the ocean, about all the places she'd never been. Dr. Morrison arrived for his weekly examination and emerged from the hospital wing looking baffled. "Their white counts are stabilizing," he told Leonard in the hallway. Elena lingered just out of sight, listening. "I don't understand it. We haven't changed their treatment protocol." "Then what's causing it?" Dr. Morrison hesitated. Sometimes patients respond to environmental factors, emotional stimulation, hope." He shook his head. "It's not scientific, but I've seen it before." Leonard glanced toward the hospital wing, where the sound of laughter drifted through the open door. Elena had just served ice cream at 2 in the afternoon, and the girls were delighted by the rebellion of it. That night, Leonard found Elena in the laundry room. She was slumped against the washing machine, a syringe in her hand, her face ashen. "What is that?" Elena's eyes snapped open. She tried to hide the syringe, but Leonard was faster. He grabbed her wrist and examined the needle. "Morphine? You're stealing medication?" "It's not what you think. Then explain, now." Elena closed her eyes. She was so tired, tired of pretending, tired of hiding, tired of counting the days she had left. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "I'm dying, Mr. Graham. Stage 4 glioblastoma. The tumor is inoperable. I have maybe a month left, probably less." She opened her eyes and met his gaze. "I wanted to do something good before I died, something that mattered. Your daughters needed someone who understood what they're going through, and her voice cracked, I needed to feel like my life meant something." Leonard stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised them both. He sat down on the cold tile floor beside her. "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have hired me if I had?" He didn't answer. They sat in silence, listening to the hum of the washing machine. "My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. I watched her disappear piece by piece. After she was gone, I couldn't look at the girls without seeing her, without seeing death." He pressed his palms against his eyes. "I abandoned them to nurses and doctors because I was too much of a coward to love them and lose them." Elena reached out and touched his arm. "You're not a coward. You're terrified. There's a difference." Leonard looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. "How do you do it? How do you love them knowing you'll never see them grow up?" "Because love isn't about what we get to keep. It's about what we choose to give."
The next morning, Leonard asked Elena to stay. More than that, he asked her to help him plan something special, a summer solstice party for the girls, a celebration of life while they still had it. "The doctors say August will be difficult," he said. "I want to give them something beautiful before that." Elena nodded. "Then that's what we'll do." But Elena had her own secrets, secrets that weighed heavier with each passing day. She spent her nights organizing documents, preparing for what would come after she was gone. It was during one of these late-night sessions that Leonard found the files. He'd come to her room to discuss the party menu. The door was ajar, and Elena was asleep at her desk, surrounded by papers. Leonard meant to simply wake her and leave, but then he saw the name on the top folder. Adriel Graham. His hands moved before he could stop them. He opened the folder and began reading. Medical records, treatment protocols, and a letter dated 3 years ago from a Dr. Lynn at Boston Children's Hospital. Given the genetic match with donor Maya Marlowe, deceased, Adriel is eligible for experimental immunotherapy using stored cord blood. The preservation of this biological material was arranged by Clara Graham with explicit instructions that it be used only if her husband's future children developed compatible conditions. Leonard's legs gave out. He sank into the nearest chair, the letter trembling in his grip. Clara, his wife, she arranged this? And Maya Marlowe, Elena's daughter, was a genetic match for Adriel? "I can explain." Elena was awake, watching him with exhausted eyes. "Then explain." His voice was deadly calm. "Explain why you have my daughter's medical files. Explain why your dead daughter is listed as a genetic match for mine. Explain why my wife's name is on a letter I've never seen." Elena rose slowly from the desk. Her movements were stiff, pained. Her illness was progressing faster now. She sat on the edge of the bed and took a breath. "Maya wasn't just a donor. She was Adriel's half-sister." The words hung in the air like a physical blow. "That's impossible." "Your wife, Clara, had a relationship before you were married with my late husband, Michael." Elena's voice was steady, but her hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "She became pregnant. She was young, scared, and Michael was already in love with me. Clara gave birth to Maya in secret and asked me to raise her. I agreed because I couldn't have children of my own, and Michael begged me to give him this, to give our family this child." Leonard stood abruptly, knocking the chair backward. "You're lying!" "I wish I was." Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out the locket. She opened it, revealing not one photograph, but 2. Maya on the left, Clara on the right. "Look at her eyes, Leonard. Look at the shape of her chin. Clara gave me this locket when Maya was born. She said it was the only way she could be close to her daughter." Leonard grabbed the locket and stared at the images. The resemblance was unmistakable. Clara's eyes staring back at him from a child's face. "When Maya was diagnosed with leukemia, Clara was devastated. She visited us in secret, spent hours with Maya when you thought she was at charity events. And when the doctor said Maya's cord blood could be preserved for potential future use, Clara made all the arrangements. She couldn't save Maya, but she hoped. She hoped that if you ever had daughters, Maya could save them instead." Leonard sank back into the chair, the locket clutched in his fist. "Why didn't you tell me? Why all the secrets?" "Because I didn't want you to see Adriel differently. I didn't want her to become a medical case instead of a child. And I didn't want you to look at me and see a reminder of your wife's betrayal instead of someone trying to help." "It wasn't your decision to make." "No," Elena met his gaze. "It was Clara's, and she chose secrecy because she loved you too much to hurt you." Leonard stood and walked to the window, his back to her. Outside, the first light of dawn was creeping across the garden. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. "The treatment, Dr. Lynn's letter, is it still possible?"
Yes, but Adriel needs to be stronger before she can receive it. That's why I've been trying so hard to bring them joy, not just for the memories. Elena rose and stood behind him. Leonard, Maya's cord blood could save your daughter, but only if Adriel is healthy enough to survive the procedure. Leonard turned to face her. The anger was gone from his eyes, replaced with something raw and desperate. Then we fight, together. The weeks that followed were filled with cautious hope. Dr. Morrison, once skeptical, agreed to review the immunotherapy protocol. The treatment was risky, experimental, with no guarantees, but for the first time there was a path forward. The girls continued to improve. Diana took her first unassisted steps in the garden. Abigail finished an entire meal without nausea. Adriel asked Leonard to read her bedtime stories, and he sat beside her bed every night, stumbling over words he hadn't spoken in years. Elena watched it all with quiet satisfaction. Her own health was declining rapidly now, headaches that lasted for hours, vision that blurred without warning, moments where she forgot where she was. But she pushed through. There was still work to do. The summer solstice party was scheduled for the longest day of the year. Elena had planned everything: fairy lights in the garden, a violinist playing under the stars, a chocolate fountain that made the girls squeal with delight. For one perfect evening, illness and death would be uninvited guests. Then the heat wave came. It struck without warning, temperatures soaring past 100 degrees, the air thick and suffocating. On the third day, the power grid collapsed. The backup generators at the Graham estate sputtered and died. Elena was in the hospital wing when the lights went out. The monitor shrieked, then fell silent. In the sudden darkness, she heard Adriel whimpering. "It's okay," she said, fumbling for the emergency flashlight. "I'm here. I'm right here." But Elena wasn't okay. Her forehead was burning, her small body rigid with fever. Her own vision was swimming, the tumor pressing against something vital, sending waves of pain through her skull. "Leonard!" she screamed. "Leonard, help!" No answer. The mansion was vast, and the intercom system was down with the power. Elena made a decision. She gathered Adriel in her arms. The child was terrifyingly light, all bones and paper-thin skin, and began walking towards the garden. Fresh air, cool grass, anything to bring down the fever. She made it halfway across the lawn before her legs gave out. Leonard found them 20 minutes later, following the beam of his flashlight across the dark grounds. Elena was unconscious, her body curled protectively around Adriel. The little girl was seizing, her eyes rolled back, foam at the corners of her mouth. He called an ambulance. He called Dr. Morrison. He carried his daughter to the waiting EMTs and watched them disappear into the night with sirens screaming. Then he went back for Elena. At the hospital, the news was delivered in fragments. Adriel's organs were shutting down. The fever had triggered a cascade of failures. The treatment window, the narrow period where she'd been strong enough for immunotherapy, had closed. "She won't survive the night," Dr. Morrison said quietly. "I'm sorry, Leonard. I'm so sorry." Leonard stood outside the ICU, staring through the glass at his daughter's tiny body, surrounded by machines and wires. In another wing, Elena was in emergency surgery for brain swelling. He was losing both of them. A nurse approached him. "Mr. Graham, Elena Marlowe is out of surgery. She's asking for you." He found Elena in recovery, her head bandaged, her face gray, but her eyes were open, and when she saw him, she tried to smile. "Adriel?" she whispered. "Dying." The word came like a curse. "You knew. All this time you knew she might not make it, and you used us, used me, to feel like your life meant something before you died." Elena didn't flinch from his anger. "I didn't come for Adriel." "What?" "I came for you, Leonard." She reached for his hand, her grip weak but insistent. "Maya's last words, Elidiaskainen. She said to tell Daddy Leonard not to be sad, to tell him to love his girls like she loved hers. Leonard's breath caught. What are you talking about? Clara told Maya that you were her secret uncle, that you were family. Maya believed it. She loved you without ever meeting you. When she was dying, when she had nothing left, she thought about you, about your future daughters. She made me promise. She made me promise to save you from your grief before it swallowed you whole. Leonard pulled his hand away. He couldn't process this,
couldn't understand how a child he'd never met had loved him, had worried about him, had sent her dying mother to save him. Elena, I can't... In my locket, Elena whispered. There's a USB drive, Maya's video diary. Please, Leonard, watch it. For her. He left without another word. The locket was in Elena's personal belongings, tagged and bagged by hospital staff. Leonard sat in his car in the parking lot, the USB drive connected to his phone, his finger hovering over the play button. The first video was Maya, at 5 years old, giggling about a butterfly she'd caught. The second was Maya at 6, showing off a drawing of her family. The third was Maya in a hospital bed, her hair gone, her skin sallow, but her eyes still bright. If Adriel hears this, she said into the camera, tell her I'm her big sister, and I saved my blood for her. She's going to live. She paused, then smiled, a smile that looked so much like Clara it stopped Leonard's heart. And Daddy Leonard, you gotta laugh again, okay? That's my job for you. Laugh again. Leonard watched the video 3 times. Then he ran back into the hospital. He found Dr. Morrison in the break room, exhausted and defeated. Leonard thrust his phone into the doctor's hands. Maya Marlowe, she's listed as a genetic match for Adriel. Her cord blood was preserved at Boston Children's 3 years ago. He was talking fast, the words tumbling over each other. Dr. Lin developed an immunotherapy protocol. It's experimental, but it exists. Please, I'm begging you. There has to be something. Dr. Morrison stared at the screen, at Maya's face, at the medical records Leonard had pulled up alongside the video. Something shifted in his expression. I know, Dr. Lin, he said slowly. We trained together. If the cord blood is still viable... It is. Elena confirmed it. Dr. Morrison stood. The treatment requires a living emotional anchor, someone the patient trusts to guide them through the procedure, someone who can reach them even when they're unconscious. I'll do it. It has to be someone with a genuine bond, Mr. Graham. Adriel doesn't know you, not really. You've been absent for most of her illness. Leonard felt the truth of those words like a knife, but then he remembered Elena's voice in the nursery, the lullaby, Adriel's whisper. She knows my name. Elena can do it. She just had brain surgery. She's barely conscious. Then we record her, her voice, her songs, her breathing exercises. Leonard grabbed Dr. Morrison's arm. Maya sent Elena to save us, all of us. Don't let that sacrifice be meaningless. Dr. Morrison hesitated. Then he nodded. Make the recording. I'll call Dr. Lin. The next 6 hours were a blur. Leonard sat beside Elena's bed while she whispered into a recorder. Lullabies, encouragements, the breathing exercises she'd taught the girls during their worst nights. Her voice was weak, fading in and out, but it was enough. At 3 a.m., Dr. Lin arrived from Boston with Maya's preserved cord blood. The procedure began at dawn. Leonard sat beside Adriel's bed, holding her hand, playing Elena's recorded voice on a loop. The monitors beeped erratically, the machines hummed and whirred, and somewhere in that small body, cells were fighting. Maya's cells, Clara's legacy, a gift from a sister Adriel had never known. You gotta live, Leonard whispered. Maya saved her blood for you. Elena nearly died for you. Your mother arranged all of this before you were even born. He pressed his forehead against her tiny hand. Please, Adriel, please come back to us. Her fingers twitched. Then, slowly, impossibly, they curled around his. 3 weeks later, Adriel was sitting up in bed demanding strawberry ice cream and asking when she could go back to the garden. Diana and Abigail had both responded to modified versions of the same treatment. The genetic connection between Maya and all 3 girls was strong enough to help them all. Elena had survived the surgery, but the damage was permanent. She was blind in one eye, her memory fragmented, her movements slow and uncertain. She would never fully recover, but she was alive. Leonard converted the east wing of the estate into a pediatric hospice center. He called it Maya's house, and Elena became its heart, not as a caregiver, but as a counselor, a listener, a woman who understood what it meant to love someone you were destined to lose. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the longest day, the girls gathered in the garden to plant a cherry tree. Leonard had chosen the spot, near the rose bushes where Elena had collapsed, where everything truly began. Elena leaned on her cane, watching the girls dig. She was thinner now, frailer, but her eyes still held that impossible warmth. Leonard stood beside her, saying nothing. When the hole was deep enough, Elena reached into her pocket and withdrew the locket. She'd carried it for 8 years, through Maya's death, through her own diagnosis, through all the secrets and revelations and impossible choices. Now, finally, it was time to let go. She knelt beside the hole and placed the locket in the earth. "What are you doing?" Diana asked. "Planting a memory," Elena smiled, "so Maya can grow with the tree." The girls nodded solemnly, accepting this with the unquestioning faith of children who had learned that death was not an ending, but a transformation. Leonard helped Elena to her feet. They stood together as the girls covered the locket with soil, then danced around the newly planted tree, their laughter rising into the summer air. "Thank you," Leonard said quietly. Elena didn't ask for what. She understood. "Thank you for Maya. Thank you for coming. Thank you for teaching me how to love without guarantees." "She would have liked you," Elena said. "Maya, she always wanted a big family." Leonard's eyes glistened. "She has one now." In the garden, Adriel was trying to teach her sisters a dance she'd invented. They were stumbling and giggling, getting it wrong and not caring. The cherry tree swayed in the breeze, its young branches reaching towards the sun. Some promises aren't meant to be kept by the living. They're carried forward in the love that outlives us, in the laughter of children who were never supposed to survive, in the tears of fathers who learned to hope again, in the quiet grace of a dying woman who gave everything she had to strangers who became family. Maya had made a promise from her hospital bed. Elena had carried it across years of grief. Leonard had finally learned to receive it, and now, watching his daughters dance beneath a sky painted gold by the setting sun, he understood what his daughter, his secret daughter, the one he'd never known, had been trying to tell him all along. Love doesn't ask for guarantees. It doesn't demand survival. It only asks to be given, freely and completely, to whoever needs it most. And in the giving, we are saved. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Drop a comment below telling me which moment made you cry. I read every single one. And if you know someone who needs to hear that love outlives loss, share this video with them. Thank you for watching until the end. Your support means the world to me.